So every home has one, and perhaps you have one in your home right now. When you think about when you get together as a family, whether it's daily or whether it's a special occasion, maybe like Thanksgiving or Christmas or some other occasion where your family comes together, around the dinner table, sometimes what you notice is that there's a chair and it's empty. Now, maybe in some families, you're grateful that that person didn't show up. Maybe it's that uncle or that one relative, which we don't talk about. But honestly, with most situations and most families, when you're together and perhaps there's a chair that maybe was once filled with someone who we cared about, we missed, or just didn't show up this Easter or this Christmas or this Thanksgiving for whatever reason, there's a lot of heartache that goes along with it. Maybe it's representative of a family member that passed away. Maybe it's representative of a family member that there was a breakdown in the relationship, and now all we have is the emptiness of this chair. Perhaps it's someone who we just don't see very often, who maybe has had some disagreements or whatever and just doesn't come around like they used to. But whatever the case, in just about every household, there's an empty chair. An empty chair that represents that person who you long to connect with, who you wish was part of the family, but for some reason, they're just not here. And it creates a lot of emotions within us, creates a lot of sadness at times, and it creates a lot of things that we just kind of can't overlook, because in a situation like this, usually the attention is brought not to the people who are there, but to the people who aren't there. In a family, it's the person who we're missing. In a church, it's the person maybe who's fallen off, who we haven't seen for quite a while. Where are they? In a relationship, it's the person who, remember what it was like when we used to be connected, when we used to have similar likes and we used to do things together. Now it's just an empty chair. You know, Jesus was very good at connecting people. He was very good at welcoming people to his table. And Jesus had chairs all around his table. He had places for people to sit that many looked at as maybe not valuable or people that really didn't belong at the table. And yet Jesus, he said, listen, you've got a seat here. And when you're not at the table, it breaks my heart. Now, a couple weeks or a week ago, we talked about Jesus and his approach to what was commonly known as sinners or tax collectors, the people that we don't like or the people that we judge. And we looked at a lot of the barriers and how Jesus' life was anything but a barrier. In fact, people flocked to Jesus. And we looked at the story where Jesus welcomed people to Levi or Matthew's table, and he welcomed them, and all the religious people, they thought, what is Jesus doing? Why is he welcoming and why is he eating with sinners and tax collectors when he should be hanging out with us, the righteous? And to this, Jesus responds and he says, listen, it's not the healthy who needs a doctor, it's the sick. And these people need to understand. And he began to break down barriers, but unfortunately, the religious people didn't quite understand it. They didn't quite get it. It didn't quite comprehend exactly the depth of what Jesus was saying when he said, at my table, there is an empty chair that is representative of people who need to connect with me. They didn't get it. But it didn't change Jesus' mission. As he went along in his ministry, the criticism, the judging, all of the things that said to Jesus, hey, you shouldn't hang around with the riffraff, you should hang around with the religious. He said, no, that's not why I have come. And he didn't get it. So in Mark chapter 2, we read about how Jesus came to the tax collector Levi, who eventually became the person that we know as the disciple Matthew. But it didn't stop there. Jesus continued to hang out with sinners and tax collectors, and the religious people looked at him and they continued to judge him and continued to say to him, "What are you doing?" And so some time passes between this first interaction with the tax collector Levi. But Jesus isn't changing the way he approaches people. So in Luke chapter 15, we come to another interaction. It sounds very similar to Mark chapter 2. Listen to what Jesus, or what the writer Luke says in chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. He says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him." Remember, they were drawn to Jesus. He didn't have to coerce them. He didn't have to manipulate them. He didn't have to lie to them. They were just naturally drawn to this guy. Verse 2 says, "And the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled." They grumbled. What is he doing? Why is he hanging out with those people? You know those people. Those people. And the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious people, they grumbled. And here's what they said: "This man receives sinners and eats with them." Oh, he got him there, didn't he? He receives sinners and he eats with them. In other words, Jesus was welcoming them to his table. He was welcoming sinners and tax collectors to his table. I mean, we've already been through this in Mark chapter 2, and he says, "Listen, let me just simply throw it out there for you. The reason I do this is because it's the sick who need a doctor, not the healthy." They didn't get it. So they come to him again and they see him, and there he is, hanging out, eating, this intimate act of just conversing, of rubbing shoulders with those who are apart and distant from God. And they're saying, "What are you doing? Why is he receiving them? Why is he eating with them?" Well, Jesus responds a little bit more eloquently and a little bit more distinctive to these people, these religious leaders who were judging his connection with sinners and tax collectors. He says, all right, you didn't get it the first time. I tried to be nice and tell you that, hey, simply put, it's because the sick need a doctor. These people are sick. They need help, and I'm here to help them. That's why I'm here. But you didn't get that. You didn't understand it. It didn't compute. So now you're still going on this grumbly route because you're so self-righteous that let me lay it out for you. Let me lay out for you the clarity of why in the world I am receiving sinners and tax collectors, and I am engaging in a meal with them. Something that you would never do. You would never be caught. Let me tell you why. And so in Luke chapter 15, Jesus enters into just a discourse of 3 stories to pound into these religious people why in the world he is receiving and hanging out with sinners. He says, you don't get it. Let me tell you these stories. Now, these aren't stories just for the sake of a story. They're not even stories that kind of illustrate what Jesus is doing. These are stories that get to the very heart of the Father, the very heart of God and his vantage point and his perspective on people. And this is the very vantage point, and this is the very perspective that Jesus has adopted, that has drawn him and made him pursue and made him zealous for what he's doing, which is receiving sinners and tax collectors, even in spite of the religious crowd. He gives them 3 stories. The first story, he says, listen, let me tell you about this shepherd. This shepherd is the owner of 100 sheep. He protects them. He cares for them. He looks out for them. They know his name. One particular night, after a day of grazing in the fields, The shepherd has led them through this treacherous terrain into the fold, and the sheep are there. They're all huddled together, waiting for the peaceful night under the protection of the shepherd after this day of grazing. So he begins to count. 1, 2, 28, 59, 87. And before he gets to it, he realizes something's off. 98, 99. There's one missing. There's one missing. One of my sheep has wandered off. One of my sheep has been distracted by something and kind of left my voice and got out of range of my voice. And now they're out there all alone. And who I am as a shepherd is to protect the sheep, because that's who I am. That is the role of me as a shepherd. Now, not every shepherd would do this. Some shepherds will look at this and say, well, 1%, take or leave it. It's a loss. Mathematically, hey, we still got 99, right? Close the pen, let's hunker down, and we'll go with that. But not this shepherd. Not this shepherd. His protective nature realized that there was a sheep out there who needed to be found. So without hesitation, he left the fold, leads the community, the warmth, the protection, the safety of the 99, and heads out into the dark night to try to find this one sheep. He doesn't care about his own safety. He realizes in the darkness, in the crevices, in the landscape, there's all kinds of dangers out there, not to mention the predators that are out at night. But he goes anyway, calling out for the sheep, calling out, trying to find the sheep because it knows his voice. But nothing. Hours pass, but he won't give up. He won't give up searching for this sheep because the sheep is lost. It's wandered off somewhere and it doesn't even know what's going on. And finally, after calling its name, in the distance, he hears this little bleating. Hoarse, bleating, because for hours, this little sheep has been crying out, not knowing how to get out of the situation it was in, not knowing how to free itself, but yet knowing the voice of the shepherd. And finally, the shepherd, he runs, not taking into account his own safety, and he sees the sheep there caught in thorns and thistles and between rocks, and without giving any credence to himself, he reaches down, loosens it. It draws blood. It scratches him. He's worn out. He's tired. He's exhausted, but he has found this lost sheep. He grabs it. It picks it up. It's trembling. He holds it close to his chest, and slowly it calms down. He carries it back to the village, and the village people know what's going on. And they're so happy and joyful that the shepherd has found his sheep. And Jesus says, here's the emotion of God here. God has an overprotective, zealous, obsessive nature about finding people who have wandered away. You know this emotion, especially those of you who are parents. You ever lose your kid? Turns your life upside down in an instant. That's the emotion God has for people who have wandered away. I've shared this before. I think it's been a while, but a number of years ago when my kids were preschool, we decided to go to Thomas the Tank Engine expedition. If you don't know who Thomas the Tank Engine is, it's probably a good thing. But anyway, the old little wooden trains, and you have tracks, and anyway, so it's a money maker. What they do is you go to this place, they dress up the caboose in Thomas, and then you drive a mile there and you drive a mile back, and it's Thomas the Tank Engine. And so you pay out the nose for this experience, but hey, it's kids, right? So this particular event was held at this park. And A lot of people, as you can imagine, because a lot of people like Thomas the Tank Engine. And so my son, who was maybe 2 or 3 at the time, just acting up, just one of those, probably overtired, overstimulated, whatever it was. Plus he was 2. So, that gives a lot of clarity. So he's grabbing our attention just for what seemed like 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Turn around, daughter's gone. She's 18 months older than him, maybe 3.5, 4 at the time. Gone. Gone. I mean, gone. I am running through this park looking for my daughter. If you've lost a kid, you know what that's like, don't you? That's the emotion Jesus had for sinners and tax collectors. The intensity. I didn't care what people were wondering about me. I didn't care if I got hurt along the way. I didn't care who was standing in my way. I had to find the one I was responsible for protecting. Long story short, we found her. In case you're wondering. But this is what Jesus is saying to these religious people. The reason I receive them, the reason I eat with them is because I am obsessed with finding them. Many of them have wandered off. They're not even sure where they got where they are. They don't know why, what happened over the course of my life. And all of a sudden, I look up and I am constricted by these thorns and these ravines, and I can't get out, and I'm just screaming out for help. And I don't think anybody's going to hear me. I'm telling you, God hears. He hears, and he hears your crying out, and he is running after you, looking for you. And Jesus says, if you don't get it, it's because God, the Father, is passionately out there, not caring about his own safety, looking for you, willing to shed his blood to find you. But he goes on, Jesus. He says, if you don't understand that, let me give you another story. There's this woman. This woman, she's a modest woman. She's not wealthy, but she's not really poor. She just has enough. And so one night, as she normally does through the course of her life, she decides to do an accounting of her assets. Her assets at that time are very simple. It may have been things that she saved. It may have been something with a bridal gift that she was given. But either way, what she had in her possession was 10 coins, each coin representing about a day's wage. And one night she sits down and she begins to count 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's one missing. One missing. Now, at first glance, some people who are wealthy or some people who have a different perspective will look at that and say, it is sad. I'll give it to you. It is sad, but it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world that you're missing a day's wage. You'll make it up somehow, right? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But not this woman. This woman realized that there was something missing. What it represented to her was not just money, it was security. It was freedom. It was dignity on her part to be able to have this asset in her position. And what it was valuable to her. It was valuable. So she did what we do when we lose something of value. She turned her house upside down. She started lighting all the lanterns and lamps in her place. She began to look beyond every jar and every drawer in places that this coin had no business being. But it's got to be in this house, right? It's got to be here. She turns her house apart and she can't find the coin. And most people looking at her might say, what are you doing? Just let it go, let it go. She says, no, this is of value to me. It means something to me. Even though it might not mean something to you, it means something to me. And she keeps going. Throughout the night, she gets her broom out and she starts sweeping. Her house has never been this clean because she's looking for everything. Finally, after it seemed like hours, she notices a little glimmer between the floorboards. And her heart begins to quicken as she sees the coin having no business being there, but there it is. And very slowly she pulls it out. And now it's complete again. She doesn't care. She opens the door and says, I found it. And people are like, woohoo, we don't know but we're happy for you. You found your coin. You found your coin. You ever lose something? So a couple months ago, I was getting ready for work. And I think I have my life together, but I don't think I do, because I'm looking around and I'm like, where's my wallet? Where's my wallet? You know what I'm talking about. Now, I mean, obviously I found it, but I mean, it's just a little thing here. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, it must be in the car. So I go into the car. I'm like, I must have left it in there. And I'm like, I'm looking through I'm looking under the seat. I'm like, why would I have my wallet in the back seat it makes no sense, but I don't care. I'm searching for this thing. Then I go back into my room and I'm looking and I'm looking in clothes that I haven't worn for a year. I'm like, oh, maybe it's there because I got to find it. Now in my wallet, I think at the time there was maybe $50, a couple credit cards, which are easy to take care of now. But the one thing that really got me was the license. Now, some people may look at that and say, don't worry about it, you get a new license. But I had a flight coming up soon, and my passport was expired, and it just raised the idea of this is of value to me. Plus, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, identity crisis, and somebody's going to start opening all these accounts. They're going to buy houses in my name, all this down this road. And so I'm in the car then, and I think, I know. I left it at work, right? I left it at work. I have a place where in a drawer that, I put my stuff when I don't want to sit on my wallet, I put it there. Or maybe I took it out and I think it's gonna be there. I get to work, it ain't there. There's nothing there. I'm thinking, somebody stole it. Cleaning crew, somebody stole it. That was the longest day. I'm trying to do work, I'm sending emails and I'm like, have you seen my wallet? It's just ridiculous because we lose our minds because we're so obsessed with finding what is of value to us. Well, I got home and I found it in a place that I really had no idea it would be, but yet there it was. But that day, everything was consumed searching for what was of value. And Jesus says to these religious people, the reason I do this is because people are valuable to me. In a world that devalues human life, in a world that has a tendency to just let people go and to move on and to write off relationships and let people do their own thing and just live in our own world, Jesus says, no, not me. Not me. I will search for that which is valuable to me. And Jesus was saying to these religious people, the tax collectors and the sinners, they're as valuable to me as you losing something of value to you. But he doesn't stop there. He's not done because he really wants to drive it home. So he tells them one more story, and this is a story about father who had two sons. There was an older son and a younger son, and the younger son was a little on the wild side. He lived at home, but he didn't like living at home. He looked at his father and thought the father was the instigator of all the misery in his life. Too many rules, too many things that I have to abide by, too much going on here. I want my freedom. And in his mind, his freedom was to rebel against the father and to leave. So what he did was one day he got up his nerve to go to his father and said, listen, I want my inheritance, but I don't want to wait till you die. I want it right now. Which is a slap in the face to his father. A rebellious slap in the face to a dad who had looked after him, who had cared for him. The inheritance meant something. And he says, no, I want it now. I want it right now. So the father gave it to him. And now the son had his freedom. And you know how this works. You know the story. You've lived the story probably. Yeah, he had some freedom. He had some fun for a while. He did whatever he wanted. He lived his life of debauchery. No parents to tell me what to do. No father to draw the lines. No culture in which I have to live. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, and it doesn't matter. And it's fun till the money runs out. So the famine happens. First thing to go is the kid's money. And then you realize that's all he had. Because quickly following that, his friends were gone. And then his dignity. One morning he gets up and he's got nothing. And he's starving. And he finds himself knee deep in pig slop. This is what his life got to. And he's standing there and he's watching these pigs eat this slop, this garbage. And he's envious of them. And this was his life now. And as he makes his way over to join the swine, Jesus said at that point, he came to his senses. He came to his senses. Maybe for the first time in his life, he got clarity on really what life was all about and what he was all about. And he thought, you know what? I don't like it here. He closed his eyes and he could imagine and he could hear the laughter of even the servants in his father's house and remember what it was like. He could close his eyes and he could almost smell the aroma of the fresh bread that was baking in his father's house. He would close his eyes and he could almost imagine the safety, the hope, the protection, the love that was in his father's house. And all of a sudden, all those stupid things that he had thought to himself were so important, like his quote-unquote freedom and the quote-unquote rules and everything else that he thought was so important, he came to his senses and he realized the only thing that matters is that I'm with my Father. And so he made a decision that day where he was going to make the long journey home and see if his father would allow him not to be a son, but just to be a servant so he could be around that culture again. So he traveled for a long amount of time. Dusty roads, he was filthy, he was disgusting, he smelled. And with every step, as he's going along, he's rehearsing the apology in his mind. Father, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Can I just live in your house? Not as a son. I don't deserve that anymore, but I want to be a servant. I just want to be around it. I just want to experience it. In his mind, he's probably going through every scenario of what could happen. In his mind, he's probably thinking, when I get to my father, I'm going to I'll lay on my knees, I'm going to beg him, but I'm sure my father is going to turn me away because it's the rebellion within me. And as he comes to his village and he sees in the distance his house way off, he sees a figure. It looks familiar, but it can't be who it's supposed to be because that figure is running. It looks like his father, but it can't be his father because he was the patriarch of that family, and they don't run. They're in control. They have things that are under their control, and this guy was just crazily running towards him. It can't be, but it was. This father, running selflessly, did not care who saw, running towards this son who had been so disrespectful, so rebellious, so disgraceful. And the closer he gets, the son is running through his mind, I've got to apologize. And before he can get the words out, his father embraces him, knocks the wind out. He can't even get the words out. He says, enough. Bring him the robe. Bring him the ring. Put him back into the place of prominence. Put a banner up that says, welcome home. Amen. Jesus says, this is why I receive sinners and tax collectors. I believe that Jesus used this relationship of the father and son, of the parent and the child, because it's the only one that really makes sense. Because we have relationships in our lives. And if someone is rebellious towards us, if someone disrespects us, if someone cheats us, if someone turns their back on us, the natural thing we're able to do, and we most likely do, is to cut them off, right? Cut them off. But it's different with a kid. It's different with a kid. A child who disrespects, who turns his back or turns her back on you, who runs away, who doesn't want to be part of the culture. The parent, the loving parent, never loses hope. That's right. Never loses hope. People may look at it from the outside and throw their judgments. Oh, you just need to let them go. It's time to cut. And maybe you do cut some things, but you know as well as I do. You know it. That a parent whose child has gone like this, they are like this father waiting at the door, looking out obsessively, waiting for that figure to come home. And this bond, no matter how much we say it's gone, I don't believe it's ever gone. And Jesus says, this is why I receive sinners and tax collectors. Because even though they've rebelled, even though they've gone their way, even though they've disrespected me, I am still engaged at a level that many people do not understand because they don't understand the relationship. But I am constantly waiting for them to come home and to fly the banner up that says, welcome home. And Jesus says, you don't get it because you don't understand the heart of the Father. This is not about religion. This isn't about doing the right things. This isn't about singing the right songs or saying the right words or looking the right way. This is about the heart of the Father who in a situation looks at the protectiveness of what he's called to do and will do whatever it takes to protect him. Will turn the world upside down, searching for those who are lost and who will wait endlessly, losing sleep, waiting for the lost to come home. There's an interesting thing in these three stories. And what they do is they they kind of start out wide. In the first story, we have the shepherd who has 100 sheep and he's missing one. In the story of the lost coin, we have 10 coins. One is missing. In the story of the lost son, we have 2 siblings where one is lost. And Jesus is taking these people who are listening on this journey and helping them realize that this isn't just about a general idea. This isn't just about a group. This isn't just about some other person. Ultimately, Jesus brings this down to understand that the reason Jesus has the empty chair is because this chair is for you. This is your chair. At some point, you were the one who was represented like the lost sheep. You were the person that was represented by the lost coin. You were the person that was represented by the lost son. One of the things that joins all of these stories together, besides the obvious, is the ending. The ending of the story of each one of them, it ends with a celebration. Do you remember what the relief was when you found your kid? The world was right again. When you found that which was valuable that you lost, peace. When the child came home, a sense of reconciliation. It speaks to the heart of who we are. And Jesus culminates all of this by saying, this chair at my table, it represents all of us, all of you. And I am searching, wanting to protect, wanting to find, wanting to reconcile, wanting you to come to your senses, even though you think you have so much that has created this barrier between you and me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You are welcomed at this table. This is your chair. And at some point, many of you, at some point, you heard the voice of the shepherd. You saw the woman who found you and was gently valuing, pulling you out. You saw the Father running towards you. After all you've done, after all that you've been through, all of the disgrace that you've brought to the family, he was still running towards you. And Jesus is saying, take a seat. And somewhere along the line, many of you, you sat down at his table. And you know what happened? There was a party. Jesus says, when this happens, the angels celebrate. The joy of that which was lost coming home. And you know what? There was a banner raised in heaven, and you know whose name was on it? Your name. Amen. Your name. This past week in our prayer group, someone did something. They didn't even realize they did it, but I'm going to share it. And it's in line with this, but so someone was praying, and I caught on to the realization that on March 6th, 1983, 33 years ago. At 8:30 p.m., there was a banner that was lifted in heaven. And Roger Wynn's name was on it. Because that was the day, that was the time he decided to take a seat at the table. And you know Roger. If you don't know Roger, you don't come to this church. Everybody knows Roger. Even if you don't come to this church, you know Roger. There's two implications here that I want to close with. First, I think it's pretty obvious. If you haven't taken a seat, it's got your name written all over it. You might think, well, I got a lot of baggage. We all have baggage. I got a lot of sin. We all have sin. I got too much. We all have too much. Just anything you're going to come up with, just drop it. Do you not think the Savior of the world hasn't heard it all? Do you not think that you're around people who haven't experienced what you've experienced? Do you think we're all holy enough that we don't experience it? Do you think that we haven't been through this place where we've been the lost sheep, we've been the lost coin, we've been the lost son? All of us have been there, but all of us have heard at one point the Father calling out to us. And let me encourage you, if you're not sitting here, why not? Why not? Do you think like the son that your freedom is out here in the world, that you're going to find it out here? Have you ever? Do you think that somehow wandering away is the answer to all this, that you haven't paid attention? This is why Jesus came, for you. Not the person sitting next to you. They got their own stuff. For you, for me. And one day, if you decide to sit in this chair, there will be a party in heaven, and the banner will go up, and it will have your name on it. A party like you've never seen or you never heard of, because that which was lost, you, has come home. The other implication is for those of us who are sitting at the table. A lot of times we don't make room for others. We think the table is full. Jesus' table was never full. There was always an empty chair. When we talked about representing Jesus well, this was a lot of the actions that he did, but what about his heart? What about his heart? Do we share the heartbeat of Christ to where we are willing to search after those who are lost? The analogy of the chair is representative of those in your life. The people who are lost, the people who are rebellious, the people who to many people are not valuable. Yet they have a spot. They have a chair. I want to share something. I battled back and forth whether I was going to do it, but I'm going to do it, and I'll give you the reasons why here in just a minute. But first of all, I didn't plan this out. This message on the empty chair. But this week, this auditorium is going to be filled with a lot of empty chairs. Each chair represents a life. It's not about a chair. That's just a place we sit, but it's about a life. It's about a life. It's about a sheep. It's about a coin. It's about a son. It's about someone who's out there. And so I want to ask you, if you want to do this, there's no pressure if you don't want to do this, but if you want to do this, I want you to put some skin in the game. And what I mean by this is we can say that we value people. We can say that this is important. We can say all these things. But a lot of times it just goes. So I want you to I want to invite you, I should say, the opportunity of sponsoring a chair. And not for the money. We've already paid for them. We've taken it out of the general fund, and I don't believe in coercing people to give. I believe God has given us the responsibility of stewarding his resources well. And so that's the core of this, but this is a little different. Because I want you to feel it. I want every time you come in this place to think about the person in your life that is out there. The sheep that is bleeding. The son that is rebelling. Do we share the heartbeat of it? Jesus said, where your treasure is, there's where your heart be also. So here's what I'm going to do. Each chair ends up being about $63. Call it $60. $60. I don't care about your money. Honestly, I could care less. What I do care about is your heart. And I want you to consider just sponsoring this, not for the sake of the physical chair, but for the person that will always be representative of who Jesus is searching for. And are you searching for them as well? The reason I do this, the second reason, is because we haven't really said anything about this. And we've already had people give close to $5,000 for chairs. It's about 75 chairs. This is what it's all about. This is it. This is why Jesus came for those who needed a doctor. And you and I are surrounded daily. I don't care where you are. We are surrounded daily with people who need protection, people who don't even know they're lost, and people who are consistently rebelling. And the question comes down to, first of all, have you taken a seat at the table? And then the second question, probably for most of us, probably for many of us, do we care? Do we care that every person we see, every person we run into, every person that passes us on the highway, every person we interact with at a store, every person that we're friends with, every person that we're acquaintances with, every person is going to spend an eternity somewhere, and many of them are out there and they're crying out. And I'm just encouraging us to share the heartbeat of the Father. Which is when Jesus said, listen, I didn't come here just to play games. I didn't come here to put on a show. I came here to get down and dirty and to deal with what I came to do, which is to seek and to save that which was lost. Amen. Just stand with me. Let me close this in prayer. Father, thank you for today, and thank you for the opportunity that we have to follow after your word and really to discover the heartbeat of God. And today as we leave here, if nothing else, may we just have our eyes open to the people around us who you died for. Realizing that there's not anyone in our lives that we don't look at. Whether it's a glance, whether it's a stare, whether it's just in passing, that you didn't die for and you're not actively searching for. Thank you for this church. Thank you for the passion of really reaching out to our community and for caring for people. And bless us as we leave here, and just bless us as we follow after your heart in your Son's name. Amen.